It's 2 o'clock, so this is the beginning of a workshop. Katarina, if you wish to start.
Yes, thank you very much. So, good afternoon and welcome everybody to this workshop on the subject of the Copernicus Contributing Missions. My name is Katarina Bems and I work in the Earth Observation Unit of the Director General for Defense, Industry and Space. I'm here with my commission colleagues Jean-Christophe Gros, Attilio Gambardella, Thibault Valentin, Gabriel Colm to guide you through the afternoon. So you are connected either directly via WebEx or either via the platform Swapcard, which hosts both WebEx and Slido. Slido is the tool which we're going to use to interact with you participants on the content of the workshop. Sorry, you can use the chat in the WebEx, but this is more for technical questions on connections or if there are issues that you want to raise. We will not take questions on the content from the chat. So our Deputy Head of Unit, Elisabeth Hamdouche, will do the opening word, but firstly, we will start with some technical messages. So I pass the word to my colleague, Gabriel Colm, who's also here, of course, during these 2 days to support us. Gabriel, please.
Thank you, everybody. So my name is Gabrielle Colm. I'm part of the GDEFIS as well in the unit on communication and international relations. So if you have any technical question, I am the person to be asked to ask. So you can always contact me in the chat and I will make sure that we're all on the same page and to answer all your questions. So how it's going to work. So normally you should have access to all information on Swapcard, where we upload presentations of speakers, the program, and you will also have access to the different events or the WebEx links through this platform. If you want to ask a question, this is managed through Slido. So how does it work? Basically, you are going to ask a question on Slido. You can then decide if you want to present it as under your name or if you want it to be anonymous. And then we as moderators are the one that will be choosing the questions. So you will only see on the Slido platform the questions that have been confirmed by us. All right, so we ask you to use Slido only for questions. So as I say again, you put the questions down there. The moderators will be the one that confirm them or not, and then we can discuss them together. Once you use when you use Slido, you have to decide to whom you want it to whom you want to ask this question. I see question in the chat. I will answer to it afterwards because I can't read and talk at the same time. I'm sorry. So basically, you can decide on which person you wanted to ask. For example, if you would have the European Commission in the session, you can click on European Commission, which is the person you want it to be addressed to. So this is how it works. So we also found it important that you can directly discuss with other participants. So you will have the opportunity to use this event as well as the networking session itself. So on Swapcard, you have the possibility to directly contact any participant. So to do so, you will need to go on to the participants tab. Then you chat to the participants. You send them a connection request. This works just like LinkedIn. And when they accept that, you can directly chat with them. You can also organize a networking one-to-one session with these people. So you go on your My Events tab on Swapcard, and then you can set a meeting time at any time you wish on the platform. So please remember to switch off your microphone while other people talk, and at the end of your intervention to avoid technical problems. For the same reason, we invite you not to use the video modality, and if there's any interference from your microphone, it may be muted by the moderator. So thank you very much. So as I say again, should you have any question, I remain at your disposal at any time. You can contact me via Swapcard directly, and I pass the floor to Katarina again. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela. Of course, also through the chat here in the WebEx, if there are issues, because there's still people joining now. And the ones that didn't hear, please, you can use the chat in case of connections. Thank you for the explanation, Gabriela. I would like to pass the floor to Elisabeth Hamdouche, Deputy Head of Unit of the Earth Observation Unit. Elisabeth, please.
Thanks a lot, Katarina, and welcome to all our participants to the workshop, Copernicus Commercial Satellite Data and European New Space. I'm very pleased to have so many participants here at this workshop. It runs over 2 consecutive days, today and tomorrow afternoon, and we organized it in partnership with the European Space Agency, ESA. ESA is our entrusted entities for using commercial satellite data in the Copernicus program, what we call the contributing missions. So thanks to ESA as well. So why are we organizing this workshop? As you probably all know, the contributing missions, the commercial missions, are an important part of the Copernicus program because they complement our Sentinel observations. And therefore, they are important to meet the requirements that we have with the Copernicus services for very high resolution data, with improved capacities in terms of timeliness and uniformity that we need. But they are also important for other reasons. They demonstrate the capacities that we have in the commercial Earth observation market in Europe. And also the new regulation for the European Union space program that is now enforced recognized the need to stimulate the European space economy and also the opportunities more specifically for European space, for new space that it offers to us. And this is why with the Copernicus program, we would like to not only use this capacity of the European commercial Earth observation market, but also on top of that, put conditions in place to stimulate this market further through our Copernicus program. And therefore, this workshop is very important for us. We are very much in a listening mode here. It is part of a dialogue and a consultation process that we are organizing together with ESA to discuss how to reshape our Copernicus contributing missions activities. In consultation, of course, with industry to see what's on offer and what is coming in the future, and also with the member states. And with this, we analyze how to reshape and how to enhance the contributing mission activity in a way that European commercial satellite providers are given a long-term perspective of data buy for public needs in Copernicus, but possibly also reuse of European public authorities. This will include traditional data buy, as we know it, mostly with the established European companies. But we aim to go beyond that. On top of that, it will facilitate the onboarding of European new space companies and also of SMEs and startups. For this, we look into new procurement approaches, such as anchor tenancies to ensure data buy, or maybe also data services buy. And this should reinforce the competitiveness of the provision of very high resolution data in Europe and encourage the emergence of multiple European data supply solutions, in particular through the possibilities that we have with new space companies. And also avoid reliance on a single provider, so reinforce our resilience. And possible lock-in situations that we could have. Just to share with you the current situation of the activity of commercial contributing missions, it's procured from within Europe and outside of Europe. It's about half-half at the moment, 50-50%. And of course, we aim to increase the commercial European very high resolution share here and to further stimulate the maturity of European entrepreneurs in these areas, new space actors, SMEs, startups, as I said before, and to reinforce also Europe's strategic autonomy with this. We also have one more novelty in our new future approach to the Copernicus contributing missions as compared to the current one. We envisage to test also other types of commercial satellite data like radio frequency, hyperspectral, thermal, infrared on top of optical and radar. And so we analyze how such data can answer the needs of the Copernicus services. They, of course, let me underline this, always remain at the core of our reflection. So the data buy needs to serve the needs of the Copernicus services. As we have this open reflection process, I'm glad that we have so many registrations for this event. We have about 200 participants registered. Now I see that slightly above 100 joined us already. I suppose that it's getting more and more as we advance in time. And I would like to encourage you to use this workshop in a really interactive way. Colleagues have explained to you how you can ask your questions. So please do so already during the presentations so that we can integrate them, react to them, that we really have an interactive session here. And also, I hope that many of you join us at the networking sessions, because this is another opportunity to interact among the participants in a more informal way as we have it now during the workshop. Also, of course, the networking session is not recorded, so you can really exchange in a very informal format. So these were just a few opening remarks in order to set the scene for this workshop and to put it into the context of our ongoing reflections. I now wish you a very good start into the afternoon with the different workshops that we have. And I hand over to Katharina again.
Thank you very much, Elisabeth. We're a bit ahead of schedule, so Gabriela, I just want to check if is everything okay, or do you still want to give some information on the technical aspects?
No, I think it's clear. If it's not clear for everybody, just to repeat, indeed, Slido and Swapcard are two different platforms. So you should have got access first to the Swapcard account where you have all the links for the event. And then Slido is a separate platform, but it also works on internet. So you don't need to download anything or something. And then this is where you will ask the question. So you indeed should have two links. If it's not the case, please mention it to me so that we can send it back to you again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Gabriela. I would like to ask everybody's patience a bit. This is a platform that we recently started using already in the previous workshop. It's also new for us, but I think it's working quite well. So let's go to the next session, which is called Copernicus Commercial Satellite Data Needs. And Jean-Christophe, maybe you can introduce this session.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Katharina. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jean-Christophe Gros, also working in the European Commission for DG DEFIS, together with colleagues who already introduced themselves. So this first thematic session is called Copernicus Commercial Satellite Data Needs. So we are going to talk about the types of data we need, types of information we need to be answered in particular, but not only by the CCM. So we will have three presentations or three speakers, and after which we will have time for a Q&A session. One presentation first from the Commission, from Katharina, and then other presentations from public authorities. So the objective is for you to get some insight and be familiar with the types of needs, data needs within the 6 Copernicus services areas for both the dedicated satellites, that is to say the Sentinel missions, but of course also related to the contributing missions satellite data. So it's rather a technical presentation as an introduction for you to get the context. And then we will have examples of data needs from 2 public authorities. And the reason for that is that public authorities have full, free and open access to the Sentinel data, as well as to the information from the Copernicus services. And they also have some access to the CCM data, like view, discovery, download rights, in the same way as our Copernicus services. And what we mean by that is that it's not necessarily full, free and open. These data are licensed data in the first place. And this will explained by Katharina in her presentation. And then for some companies, in particular for the ones which are already part of this framework with the CCM activities, we hope and we think that these needs are well known already. However, for the companies, and it may be the case of many of you today, who are not yet fully familiar with this context, this is the opportunity for you to better understand this framework. And we believe it is important for all the companies to be here on the same page and share the same understanding, hence these presentations. So in this session, what are you going to find out? first, who are the main users of the CCM data? What are the user needs, the requirements? And tomorrow, there will be a more detailed presentation on the way the CCM activities are organized. So now the needs, tomorrow, the organization itself of the CCM activities. So like all the other presentations in the workshop today, this they will be shared with you after the workshop. We will put them online on our Copernicus website as soon as we can, typically in a PDF format. And we invite you also to submit your questions already while the presenters will be talking, so that we can start and gather the questions, and then they will be answered in a smooth manner in this way. So I thank you very much for your attendance, and I'm now pleased to give the floor to Katharina for the first presentation. So Katharina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jean-Christophe. Just to check with the colleagues, how do I go to the next slide? Oh, I get it, I think. Yes, okay, thank you very much. Please also note that in the Slido, you can already start asking questions if you want to. So as Jean-Christophe said, let's have a look why we are buying commercial satellite data. So very briefly, I will try to explain today the Copernicus service needs and requirements and the potential needs that can be interesting. And I already will also make a link to the request for information, which is subject of the workshop tomorrow. So here we have a bit of a complicated slide, but have a look at the middle. There we have our 6 thematic Copernicus services. Okay, so what do? They use obviously our Sentinel data, data from our Sentinel constellations, and they are also called dedicated satellite missions. To these data, as you know, applies the full, free and open data and information policy. That's on the left side. However, for some of our Copernicus services, there's also a need for very high resolution data. So then on the right side, you see the contributing missions. These are the commercial and national missions that we use, that we do data buy from through ESA. And these data are fall under licensed conditions. You can also see on the right that the Copernicus service used in situ observation data and reference information, but I don't want to go further into that today. So the Copernicus services use different types of data, and what they do is they produce added value information. And this is important to notice that this information also falls under the full, free and open data and information policy. So contributing mission data are licensed. They're used by a Copernicus services so that they can produce information which can be full, free and open accessible. I already mentioned that the Copernicus Contributing Missions activity is operated by the European Space Agency, and this is on behalf of the European Commission. They are here in the room today, and they will feature and give presentations tomorrow on the requests for information. For those that start looking on the website, there's a link later in the slides of the Contributing Missions activity. It was previously known as Data Warehouse activity. The main users are our 6 Copernicus services, and currently the data buy is focused on very high resolution optical and radar data. So you see below, or here you see the figure, what is the spatial resolution, that is the categories that are being used. Now, going to the user categories, because we understood that it's not always clear who is using the contributing missions data. Obviously, you see here in this table, on the left, who can access Copernicus contributing mission data, and on the top you see the rights, who can view data, download or task. It's the Copernicus services that have all the rights to view, download and task. And then you see the other categories, what is it that they are able to do? Public authorities, they can download the data, and so they can reuse the data. You will see later in the presentations by the public authorities how much of this data is currently being reused. Maybe it's not clear for you who then applies or is eligible to be a public authority as a user category. Here you have an overview. Obviously, it's employees of a government or public administration, of Copernicus, of our Copernicus member states and participating states. It's also employees of research and academic organizations, persons having public responsibilities or functions or providing public services relating to EU policy, and contractors of such entities. As Jean-Christophe said, the slides will be shared with you later on, so you can have a look at the link that is in these 2 slides if you want to look for further information. Now, for those companies that have answered to the request for information, which was issued by ESA, there was an explanation on the type of needs that we currently have, or that our Copernicus services have. There are the systematic data needs on the left side, and on the one hand, and on the other hand, the on-demand. And there is a big difference in terms of characteristics that are needed. Once again, some time ago, we were still talking about core data if we were referring to systematic data, and additional data if we talk about on-demand. So systematic data are systematic coverages and acquisitions. And it's primarily our Copernicus land, marine, and atmosphere monitoring services who are asking for this type of data. On the right side, you see the on-demand data. It's rush mode, primarily for the needs, obviously, of the Copernicus emergency management and security services. And I think I've seen colleagues from these services here in the meeting room. Systematic. On the left side, these are regular planned coverages and acquisitions, predefined areas of interests, and the main characteristics are data quality assurance, completeness, which means avoidance of redeliveries, because sometimes that is forgotten by satellite data providers. If you need to provide a coverage, cloud-free and haze-free, and you deliver it, and after a while you get even better images, cloud-free, and you foresee a redelivery, it has repercussions and an impact on the service providers that are working for the Copernicus services. The other characteristic is uniformity. On the right side, on the on-demand data requirements, they're unplanned, acquired mostly in rush mode, because to answer to natural and man-made disasters or crisis situations, so it's not known upfront which areas of interest are going to be affected. And the main characteristics here also, obviously, quality, spatial resolution, and timeliness. Timeliness means get the data as soon as possible. So here you have an overview, a detailed overview, what is currently needed, systematic requirements, regular and planned optical very high resolution coverages of large predefined areas. We talk about the common VHR coverage that we have now. If you see, for the land data for the European continent, every 3 years, we talk about 6 million square kilometers. So every 3 years now, we're looking forward, or the Copernicus Land Monitoring Service is actually ready to also take on board yearly seasonal coverages. These data are accessible for the public authorities in Europe. And our 2 public authority presenters will talk about this more. Coastal areas, optical and SAR data for regular verification of a selection of sites of the ground motion service, high resolution SAR data for sea ice in the polar regions for the Marine Environment Monitoring Service, and then also these satellite data equivalent to the data from the future Sentinel expansion missions. And you see the link of the report that can be useful. Let's have a look at the on-demand requirements. And for the companies that are in the room, for you, this is no secret what means lead time. That means the time from request to sensing, and latency from sensing to image availability. It is clear for our emergency and security services, the faster the data is delivered, the better. Interesting to note that there is no need, except for there was one single request for single use, so no need of a secure downlink reported. Have a look at the picture. Below at the bottom, you see rush requirement less than 16 hours, and for the lead time and latency, 30 minutes. This is what our Copernicus services need and want. On the right side, you see the rush data offer. First image available lower than 48 hours and including latency less than 3 hours. And this is what has been translated. Apparently, currently the data offer cannot answer to the rush requirements of less than 16 hours for lead time and 30 minutes for latency. On the top, you see the different future requirements for lead time and latency. I leave that up to you to have a look at the details for that later on. On-demand requirements from Copernicus for the future, the very high-resolution digital surface and terrain models for the emergency and the security services, tip and queue from high resolution to very high resolution for SAR and optical, and also here satellite data equivalent to the Sentinel expansion missions, Hyperspectral, SAR, L-band. So here are the two, I'm nearly at the end of the presentation. So the potential developments in the very high resolution data consumption is an increased need for optical very high resolution data between 2 and 4 meters. There's a continuous high need for optical very high resolution less than 1 meter for our Copernicus emergency management service and the security services. But obviously, as you understood, with more stringent timeliness requirements and a continuous need for SAR, VHR less than 1 meter, and eventually increased needs for data less than 4 meters. So these are the two last slides. Copernicus data and Copernicus services needs for data from new instruments and platforms. We have the hyperspectral, the request for hyperspectral data to prepare for the uptake of the upcoming expansion mission, Copernicus Hyperspectral Imaging Mission. There's also a request for use of data from manned, unmanned aircraft and high altitude pseudosatellites, LiDAR data. Interestingly, also for automatic dependent surveillance broadcast or radio frequency signals detection and independently geolocated automatic vessel identification system. And the last slide, this is Copernicus services data needs for products and services. 3D models, data value adding services such as automated feature extraction and change detection. And this has to do with the fact that it's mostly for emergency and security that they get the data as ready as possible, if possible, and answering to their requirements and quality needs. SAR coherence change detection. There is also need to increase the possibility of agile observations and improving the probability of getting agile acquisitions in uncertain weather conditions as discontinuous cloud cover. There's a request for possibility of direct tasking. Would it be possible for direct tasking API with the data providers? Obviously, from our side, we need then to see how that works with the control of the quota, or shall it be through streaming? Multiple acquisitions per day, our emergency services very much in favor of that. But then through a subscription fee system, that would be an innovative approach, and analysis-ready data. So these are the last slides. You will also find this table, 3 more tables. This is a summary of the optical data requirements from a Copernicus services. This table and the other ones appeared in the request for information. So that's why we also broadcast them here for those companies that were not able to answer on time. You see here what it's the same that was said before, but here you have the systematic satellite data requirements also and the horizontal resolution. And then the last slide, this one is a summary of what was said on the rush mode requirements. So it's quasi real-time, rush, and fast. So this is the last slide. Jean-Christophe, I give the floor back to you.
Thanks a lot, Katharina, for this clear presentation. Very interesting to see the evolution of the types of needs, not only from a performance. Of course, we see a step here, but also from the type of data. I'm now turning to the first speaker from the public authority. So we have two speakers, as I have said previously, Stefan Arnold first from the German Statistical Office, and then they will be Ola Nordbeck from the Norwegian Space Agency. But first, let's go to the presentation from Stefan Arnold from the German Federal Statistical Office. So Stefan, the floor is yours. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Jean-Christophe, and also Katharina for the introduction, which gave a very good overview what's going on strategically and about the portfolio of what kind of data is available. So, shall I share my own slides, or do you activate the slides?
It's already shared.
They do it here.
Okay, so
on the left side, you see you can go down or up with the slides. Are you in the swap card?
No.
So
I don't see a button to, but I can put up the slides myself if.
No.
And share the screen.
That's fine, Mr. Arnold. I am going to share for you. Just mention the next slide and I will share it for you.
Okay. Layout.
There is a bit of an echo when you talk. If the sound could be not muted, but much lower. While you talk, that would be good.
You mean my own
Yes.
microphone? Yeah, okay, correct. I put down the volume.
Thank you.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I will share with you some thoughts about the requirements for a very high resolution imagery from a member state's perspective, but I don't represent Germany in this case. I represent my own expert point of view to this issue. So, okay, then let's dive into it. When we talk about cui bono, so who can have a use of it? So there are some stakeholders who may have a direct and an indirect benefit from a VHR imagery. And the ones who will have the direct benefit from it are mapping agencies, obviously, and institutions that conduct monitoring initiatives, because they can directly use VHR imagery as an additional source of information. They can integrate that in their own production processes, and they would have, no matter what kind of sensor it is, they might have just another temporal time slide as an additional data acquisition date besides their own orthophotos or sentinel data that they might use. And by using those data, maybe it can have also a synergy effect between pan-European monitoring initiatives and local land surveying initiatives, because they all work with the same kind of data. And like that, every national authority can use then the VHR imagery to produce their own contributions to pan-European bottom-up products, like the in the Copernicus land part, for example, in the Corinne Land Cover Plus suit, which is about to be continued. I work for a statistical office, so statistical offices normally don't analyze themselves directly optical satellite images, and in some cases they do, but in most of the cases, statistical offices use third-party data, and that's why I consider statistical offices as indirect beneficiaries who also benefit from the fact that third-party data, and that's very often data from mapping agencies or cadastre authorities, if those institutions have access to very high resolution imagery, and by that they can enhance their data quality or the timeliness or the accuracy of their data, then also the statistical offices who make balances of, for example, land use types, they also benefit from a better data quality regarding the data source they're using. Okay, so go to the next slide, please. So why very high resolution imagery? I mean, we have already optical, quite good spatial resolution imagery by the Sentinel-2 family. This very high resolution imagery, which might have like a 0.5 meter or 1 meter spatial resolution, is quite a good step in between the extremely high resolution ortho photos, which have maybe a 20 centimeter resolution, and the Sentinel data of 10 meter resolution. So there are several projects who try to ingest both ortho photos and optical Sentinel data into a processing chain of into some algorithms, and the gap between 20 meter and 10 meter 20 centimeter and 10 meter resolution per pixel is quite large. So this very high resolution imagery might be a very good intermediate resolution between those two data sources that are already in place. It would be important not only have the visible bandwidth, but also at least the near infrared, because you can extract a lot of information about vegetation, also in parts about wetness of the soil from these data. Further, it could be used as a fallback position, like if there's just no way to have ortho photos for a certain area, or it could also be used as a reference data when you imagine a product has been generated by analyzing Sentinel-2 data, and through some sample parcels, the results of the Sentinel-2 data processing should be quality checked. There, in those cases, also very high resolution imagery could be used in some CalVal processes, for example. And speaking about the content of the data, of course, you will be able to extract much more textual details about the surface of the Earth from very high resolution imagery compared to the Sentinel pixels. For example, when you want to learn more about the build-up objects in build-up area, sometimes you can interpret better the use of build-up areas when you are able to describe the texture, not only the fact that it's a sealed area by buildings, but what kind of roofs and what kind of surrounding is around these buildings. Lets you conclude a bit better about the use of these areas, and that might be of importance for any urban monitoring processes, or it can also support the smart city management, which becomes more and more as a buzzword in regional and local planning. But also on the non-sealed areas, if you have a look at the vegetation type, or the especially the status of the vegetation, or the constellation of some plant communities, or even crop types, are far better detectable in a very high resolution imagery than it is possible with Sentinel-2 imagery. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I'll continue with the why question, and maybe also go a bit into how to specify it, or how they could be configured. It would be clever to have an on-leaf and off-leaf image coverage, so that you can see both the vegetation when it's fully fledged at the peak of the vegetation cycle, but also an off-leaf season image coverage would be helpful, because then you can assess and test better the objects that are placed underneath the canopy cover of vegetation, like transportation networks or also hydrological networks. Speaking about my German perspective, we have in Germany a pilot project called COP for All, so Copernicus for All, and this all means all federal states in Germany. It's conducted by a federal states mapping agency in North Rhine-Westphalia, and they have under contract a consortium who have developed a processing algorithm chain to produce a land cover, a pure land cover product, by using all the data that are available from the mapping agency themselves. So topographic vector data, but also ortho imagery and the freely available Sentinel-2 images. And they would have the opportunity to integrate very high resolution imagery, satellite imagery, with the visible and near infrared bandwidth. Then I think this would also be of benefit for this production of a national land cover product, I guess. Another use case maybe could be to integrate it in initiatives that work around the digital twin. So there are several cities or countries that have put themselves on the path to generating a digital twin of their country or of their city. And there you will see a quite an extensive fusion of all kinds of data, optical data, radar data, three-dimensional data, LiDAR scanning data, and the VHR imagery would fit very well, I guess, in this data fusion portfolio also. So you could make an overlay of the VHR images with some 3D terrain models to have a very good representation of the Earth in its digital form. And the last point on this slide I would like to mention is everything that happens around the eagle concept. So it's a concept that has come up with a data model which aims to describe the Earth's landscape not so much by classification, like we know that from Corinne Landcover, for example, but by characterizing each object on the Earth's surface and let it open how these objects might be classified and leave it to a level above this meta level of object characterization. And as I said before, in the VHR images, we can capture much better some details about the objects on the surface, and by that you can characterize very well vegetation objects or also artificial surface objects, and extract this information and store them in the Eagle data model. Okay, next slide, please.
Stefan, if you could accelerate a bit, because it would be good that you conclude in 1 minute.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So also I want to say something about the frequency. So why VHR imaging on a yearly basis? This could be very helpful because then it can be synchronized with national activities. So far, when we have a VHR imagery on a 3-year cycle, it's too many gaps in between, and sometimes it's a mixture of on-leaf and off-leaf mosaic parts. So if the VHR imagery would be available every year, I think people would much more frequent consider to use the data. And an example I have listed here is with the usage of local public transport. So if you know that every 10 minutes there's a metro going into the city and out of the city, you're not really looking at the timetable. You just go to the metro station and you wait for the next train and take that. But if you know there's just one train going in the morning in the city and another one in the evening, then anything else you do during the day must be organized around that one train going into the city. And then you probably rather take the car, because then you're more flexible and you're not using the train. So if this VHR imagery is provided on a yearly basis, just by the fact that it's provided every year, maybe we'll cancel out the hesitation of users to integrate such data in their own business processes. Okay, next slide. I think that's the last one.
Yeah,
hopefully.
please come to the conclusion. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's kind of the conclusion. And it's not like a requirement for specifications of VHR imagery. It's just ideas that have come up to my mind. So it would be good to have two yearly coverages, and focusing on vegetation cycles and not so much on calendar years. So it would be good to have a only on-leaf season mosaic, for example, from May to September, and an off-leaf season mosaic from when the vegetation has no cannot be covered from November to March, for example. And when it needs when you need some gap filling, then you can just fill it up with the following next year vegetation cycle or non-vegetation cycle. And if there's only one mosaic affordable, maybe a decision needs to be made in favor of an on-leaf season mosaic or an off-leaf season mosaic, because when you have a mosaic which is mixed with on-leaf and on-leaf, so with vegetation and without vegetation pixels, then it's very difficult to systematically analyze such imagery. And yeah, with that, I would close my presentation and give back to Jean-Christophe.
Thanks a lot, Stefan, for this detailed presentation concerning these evolving needs. So without much ado, I would like to give the floor to Ola from the Norwegian Space Agency. So Ola Nordbeck, our speaker. The floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
I would propose that the virtual meeting host is also changing my slides. So if it's okay with you, then we proceed like that.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. So next slide, please. So I will shortly talk a bit about the reuse of Copernicus satellite data. It's a bit to pick up on what Stefan was talking about from his perspective, and try to see on this if it's a kind of a possibility to unlock the demand for VHR data, where we have not seen this reuse of this. The reason why I have a specific interest in this is also that I have a history working on this within the Commission. So I am a bit familiar, and there has been an interest to reach out to the public authorities, and that's very much appreciated, coming back to our host public authorities. So I will just, if you can just go to the next slide. From colleagues at ESA, we have had some figures presenting a bit the reuse, so the reuse activity by member states. Currently, the figures I saw was 1126 public authorities. That is difficult to say if it's a high figure or not. Probably it would be better to know what the figures, what the data has been used for, if they have been incorporated in the activities of this public authority. But it's interesting to see the distribution among the European countries. And from a Norwegian perspective, we see a figure of 4%. It's difficult to understand how we're going to relate to that, but we consider it on a European level to be rather high. So if we go, could this figure potentially be higher? That's a question to be asked for the next slide. If we, after talking to the public authorities in Norway, we see that they see some challenges with the existing license agreement. And when it comes to the reuse of the Copernicus data. And it is that the license agreement is rather complicated to read and understand. So it is not clear for them what they can do with this data, and therefore we decide to go for a non-touch approach. So it's a bit of a clarification for the future would be good in order to see that they can make use of this data. Then it comes to the auto-ratification, as is always a difficult point from Norwegian point of view, but it would be good to have a DEM that is fit for purpose and standardized among the CCMs in this activity to make sure that the data is comparable. Going back to the optical data, there's differences in the spectral bands range, so it would be good if those could be somehow standardized, if there's going to be higher use and comparable use between the different data providers. And then the last point is about the access to data. It's a file-based approach is a bit problematic. So many of them are more interested in streaming possibilities than the current file-based approach. Next slide, please. But with challenges, there also come some opportunities, and a lot of our authorities see that this is a potential for the future. And this is a potential that can maybe unlock this use that we initially addressed, Stefan also addressed in his presentation, in order to build this gap between sentinel and aerial photography. But also in the case of Norway, we have some register data that we use. This can be an important contribution to that. It's possible then it could be possible to align the pan-European products with the ones in the member states to make sure that they, if they are synchronized, as Stefan addressed, or if they are aligned, it can be discussed, but it should somehow correspond to each other so the member state can pick up on those products and that they are comparable to the ones from the European point of view. That would be good. Homogeneous spectral bands, as addressed in the challenges, would be good in order to do them comparable to the Sentinel-2 to the extent possible. And then this might be a possibility to build bridges among European public authorities in order to come closer and to work on the same baseline data and learn from each other. So next slide, please. So here we'll go through some examples in Norway that we have taken. This is a bit of the baseline data. Stefan mentioned a bit on the mapping authority. We have similarities with the Norwegian mapping authority, but also the Norwegian Institute for Bioeconomy and Research that do the land resource map, but also, and it's similar to the land cover. These are base maps that are provided on a free basis to the authorities. They currently base themselves on the change detection from reporting from the municipalities and the aerial photography. And that this comes now on a 5 to 7 year period normally around the country. However, this VHR data would improve the planning of this aerial photography to see where the changes are happening. But it could also put this timestamp on the changes that has happened in order to be more timely with the data. So there's some there's some VHR needs addressed here from these agencies or authorities, and they are a bit similar to the data that you have addressed. So 0.5 to 2.5 meter. The goal is to have a frequency Sentinel-2, but a target could definitely be a seasonal, as addressed by Stefan. And again, the terrain model is important. Next slide, please.
Ola, if you can soon come to a conclusion, that would be also very good.
I will speed up
Thank
a
you.
bit. Next slide, please. So here's two other examples of institutions, the Environmental Agency, and then we have the Ministry of Climate and Environment. The first one is a bit similar as the previous two examples, the Mapping Authority and the NIBIO, where they see a possibility to integrate this data into their activities. Well, the second one is maybe a well-familiar one for some of you. This is an ongoing contract where NICF is procuring this data. Now, this is planned to continue this way, but the needs are there. They will, and the needs come mostly then from their NICF data users, not from the ministry itself. So this is a global interest to provide this free available commercial data to the tropical forest countries. And it's working rather well. The needs you see there, it's from 2 to 5 meters. And a frequency as Sentinel-2 would be preferable, but the target is monthly, and that's how it is the ongoing contract. Next slide, please. This is a little bit just to, I think I will focus here on the SAR one. This is an authority that is actually reusing the data for very internal purposes. And that's a Norwegian Water Resource and Energy Directorate that is using the SAR data in order to outline the flood events. So this is very much appreciated for their activities, and they hope that this data will also be possible to access in the events of emergency in the future. However, the resolution could be even better, but I think for their purpose, what they have received so far has been very much appreciated. So then to go to the final slide, my final question on this. Can the CCM activity be help to unlock the demand for VHR data? It's not that it's going to take over and be the only resource for these authorities, but maybe it could just make that first mile in order to open up this potential for the various companies that are present here in this meeting of today. So with that final question, I leave a word to Jean-Christophe and colleagues. Thank you.
So thanks a lot, Ola, and I can take note that you're taking both care of the presentation, but also of the questions, so that we can quickly go also through the Q&A session. So we don't have much time for questions, and I see that there are not many questions anyhow. Yeah, but I see one question.
Sorry, Jean-Christophe, just to ask Sébastien, would it be possible to share your screen to show the questions?
Just 1 second, please.
Yes. Sorry, Jean-Christophe, please go ahead.
Okay, the question is there an existing list, which is public, I assume, of who are the users, basically, the list of users who is downloading the data? So, Katarina, I don't know if you can answer this question. That would be good.
There was one which received more votes.
I missed that one. Please go ahead.
Sorry, no, the one with the most votes is the question: is it possible to understand current and future yearly Copernicus budget spent between the Copernicus services? Between the Copernicus services? And
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, sorry. And there it is. So the yearly Copernicus budget spent, you mean on the contributing missions activity? Actually, Peggy Fisher from ESA will present this tomorrow. In the RFI, the request for information, there was a pie chart where you could see the industrial costs for the contributing missions data by of the last MFF, multi-annual financial framework. And the amount was 322 million euros, of which 70% went for optical data buy, remember systematic and on-demand data buy, and 20% to SAR data buy, and 10% to services. So I hope that answers a bit the question. For the future, actually, I don't know, is Elizabeth, are you still online? I have to ask if we can already mention also the budget for the next MFF. I'm not sure if that's allowed. So Elizabeth, okay. We will find out if it's allowed and then we'll come back on this one. So the other one, you don't see the voting, but the other one was...
No, we do, I think.
The list of all the public commercial research NGOs, other entities accessing Copernicus services and or Copernicus data. So the question was anonymous, no problem with that. Obviously, accessing Copernicus service information, it's full, free and open. We do have a light registration, I understood, for user categorization and not, a few questions, but if the information is full, free and open, we do not ask so many questions. So, and obviously not who's using it. We can make maybe, or actually, no, it's not possible for the full, free and open services information. If you're talking about the contributing mission data that is being accessed, downloaded, we do have download figures per user category. I don't have them here upfront, but it's always in terms of the bigger category that we can present. I think for personal protection, GDPR, I don't think we can reveal unless we ask the different companies or the different users if it's allowed that they want to show that they downloaded. Okay. And then the two last questions, question 1 and 2, I think and I hope actually that the two presentations by the public authorities have helped you to answer to these questions. Apparently, you can see that they are trying to reuse the VHR data. They clearly pointed out also what are their needs. And our Copernicus services, what they do is they listen or they take into account the user requirements or what is being needed, what is needed to produce. The problem is that we've seen, and tomorrow this will also be presented, that although the public authorities can reuse the CCM data under the same license conditions as the services, there's not enough reuse. So that's a bit the problem. So in terms of it's out there, they can use it, and there needs to be a boost for them to reuse it. So I think, Jean-Christophe.
Yeah, thank you, Katarina. It's about time to conclude this session. So I thank all the presenters, in fact, and also Katarina for answering the questions, and all of you for raising those. So we saw in that session, in particular, needs in terms of VHR data. But in fact, there are more and more also, and we see that being developed, needs for other types of data as well. So we also receive the more and more needs from our services, data like that which are being introduced. It's not only about VHR data, but also other types of data. This is coming. This is something which is in the air. let's see how it develops. But that's a trend that we are clearly seeing. So with this, I would like to close this session and move to the next session, which is about the European new space data providers. And I will also be moderating the following session. So coming to the next session, we just, in fact, presented the needs. Now we are coming to what could be one element of the answer, typically. So we have asked presenters to concisely prepare a presentation from their company, what they could offer in the framework of the CCM. So it's about European new space data providers, in particular in the new space area. So we have half an hour together for this session, and there will be 3 speakers. First, Roberto Fabrizi from Satlantis, after which we will have a presentation from ICE-I, and then ScanWorld. Okay, so I would propose to you to start right away. We have 10 minutes in total per presenter, but that is to say we have 6 minutes for presentation and then a few minutes for questions, after which we move to the next presentation. So Roberto, the floor is yours, and please stick to your time quite strictly. We will be monitoring that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jean-Christophe. So my name is Roberto Fabrizi. I'm the Sales Business Development Director of Satlantis. I will try to, I don't have the control. Cannot. Can you, next slide, please? No, sorry. Okay. Satlantis is a Spanish technology SMA, result of strong public-private alliance. We are one of the European leaders in high resolution and very high resolution optical payloads for nano and micro satellites. Satlantis offers also an end-to-end solution from upstream to downstream. And in this first slide, you can see our main product, that is our eSIM camera, that is the integrated standard image for microsatellites, that is a miniaturized high-resolution instrument with multispectral capability optimized for visible and infrared bands. In this slide, I would like to share with you our current and planned mission. Please let me spend few words before on the first 2 milestones. Last year, we had our first flights to the International Space Station with JAXA. We flew with our camera eSIM 117, and we acquired thousands of images to demonstrate our super resolution techniques. And at the end of this year, actually, the 21st of December, we will launch our second camera, the eSIM 19, to the International Space Station, this time with NASA, to demonstrate the multispectrality and the agility that I will talk later on. I've also highlighted in red the missions that will be devoted to the Copernicus Contributing Missions. Our first one will be next year, named Urdaneta. It will be launched in June. We will have a second mission in Q2 2023 that will be our first mission completely dedicated to the methane leaks gas facility. And we hope between 2023 and 2025 to launch 390 echo satellites. Our first constellation to monitor contamination by atmospheric and ocean plastic. As I said, Urdaneta will be our first satellite. It will be launched on June 2022 in 60U CubeSat. It will have 4 bands similar to Sentinel-2 with 2.5 resolution with 14 kilometers worth. And it will have the capability of agility that I will explain later on more in detail, these key elements that we have on board of our camera. The JSAT and 390 Echo constellation and to contribute to the monitoring quantification of the greenhouse gases, such as methane, as we say before, and the camera dimension, just to give you an idea, is 5 to 10 times, in particular the eSIM 117 that include Vunier and Sphere, is 5 or 10 times less than a traditional camera with the same spatial resolution. So, and what we are doing in particular with this constellation, we are developing all missions with an end users named Enagas, that is the main transmission system operator in Spain, that is also one of the investors of Satlantis. As I say, the key innovation to support the Copernicus services, we have three main key innovations on our camera. The first one is the super resolution. We can improve up to a factor of 2.5 the original spatial resolution to our camera through a combination of diffraction limit design and the observation strategy. We do everything on board. Our second point is the multispectral without loss of spatial resolution, as you know. In the EO camera, in the traditional EO camera, with 4 color bands, usually we have the spatial resolution degraded by a factor of 4. In case our spatial resolution is not affected by the number of bands, but this number is not only limited by the power of the electronics that control the acquisition of the image. And finally, and I think it's quite interesting for the Copernicus services, the agility, because we can take the images continuously while satellites move along and across its orbit. That makes our eSIM camera the only Earth observation multispectral system with very high resolution specialized in monitor irregular linear infrastructure. And we are also able to obviously to monitor coastline and borders. Beyond these two cameras that we just presented, eSIM 19 and 117, we are developing a next generation Earth observation solution with eSIM 300 for Minisat at 50 centimeter resolution, an hyperspectral camera. And my last slide is related to the needs of Copernicus, how we are going to interact with the Sentinel data, with the Sentinel mission. In particular, JSAT Constellation will contribute to improve our reporting on methane emission with higher frequency and spatial resolution. Measurement in coordination with Sentinel-5P. Our idea is to achieve an operational tipping and queuing capability for quantification of the point source of methane. And the first mission, Urdaneta, that is fit quite well with the needs that Caterina mentioned in her presentation, is has the same spectral band of Sentinel-2 and with 4 times better resolution. So it will be very much interesting for service like line monitoring or precision agriculture. And as I said, the agility, that is the innovation point, it will easily meet the security requirement for border and maritime surveillance, for example, but also provide a unique capability to monitor irregular linear infrastructures such as coastline and pipelines. This was my last slide. So if you have any question, or also you can send also me an email or through Slido the question. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Roberto. So I don't see any question in Slido. So can my colleagues confirm?
Correct. No,
okay.
no questions
no
yet,
specific
but
question.
please, yeah, we invite, sorry, Jean-Christophe, we invite you to submit questions in the meantime. Very interesting presentation.
I have one question for you, Roberto.
Yeah.
You mentioned the tip and queue mechanism. I'm not sure everyone is familiar with that. What do you mean by that? Can you explain?
Yeah, the idea is to use Sentinel-5P for the global large-scale coverage, since their large coverage that is a 7-kilometer pixel of Sentinel-5P to get a first understanding of the background, and later on to task our constellation to have a better qualification, a quantification of the methane leaks. That is the idea of the tipping and queuing that has been also mentioned by Caterina between high resolution and very high resolution in optical and SAR.
Okay, thanks a lot, Roberto, for this clarification. So if there are no further questions, if we have time, we might come back to questions also at the end of the session. So bear with us.
Sorry, Jean,
yeah.
There's one last minute question that came in. To Atlantis, it's anonymous. So is there any public investment in your company, or is this purely privately financed?
As I said before is a mix between private and public investments. So, and actually in my first slide, there were logos of some public institution that invest on us.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, other questions can come in. Please, participants, you can still keep on putting questions forward. But Jean-Christophe, next presentation, I guess.
In any case, I think it's time to move to our next presenter. So Corinne Green from ISI. Good afternoon, Corinne.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear. So the floor is yours, Corinne.
Wonderful. Is it all right if you change the slides for me as well?
We will take care of that.
Perfect. Okay. So good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me here. My name is Corinne Green and I am the UK and ESA Regional Manager for ISI. It's great to talk to you today, and sort of for the first few minutes, I'm going to outline a little bit about ISI and our Constellation for those that are not very familiar with it. And I'll end up with some of our latest products and solutions we're developing that will be useful for the Copernicus services. Next slide, please. So this is one of ISI's satellites being built in the clean room in our head office in Helsinki. It's about 100 kilograms in weight. And importantly, ISI were the first company to miniaturize the SAR payload and put it on a satellite. And at the time, many people said that it was an impossible thing to do, but ISI managed to achieve it and have gone from strength to strength. Next slide, please. So ISI launched its first satellite in 2018, and it's since launched 14 satellites and now has the largest SAR constellation in the world. We have 3 modes ranging from 25 centimeters, which is our highest resolution spot mode, to 15 meters for our wide area scan mode, which is 10,000 kilometers squared, which is pretty impressive from a small satellite. And it's able to cover whole seaways like the Suez Canal, which is shown in the middle of the image there, from end to end. And we have optimized our satellites for persistent monitoring. So that means very regular, agile revisits. And we have the ability to image multiple targets in the same location in the same pass. And we're increasing our coherent and non-coherent revisit times as we launch more satellites. So it's on average about 4 hours from average time from acquisition to delivery, although often faster. Next slide, please. So one of our newest products is something called Daily Coherent Ground Track Repeat. It's not very easy to remember, but all of those words are actually very important in the product description. So what it means is that it's our one-day coherent product, and ISI is the only company currently able to offer the coherent repeat daily, which is what we offer. So what happens is that the satellites pass over the same spot daily using the exact same geometry, and that allows you to gain information on activity patterns and apply change detection to millimetric levels of change in that area of interest that you have on a daily basis. So clearly very, very useful for Copernicus security, land, emergency services to get data with daily revisits and to millimetric levels of accuracy. And it just allows you a whole level of analysis and detail not available before. So the image that you can see is actually a location in Mosul. Can you play, is it possible to just play if you click on the image, there is a little at the bottom, if you click on the image, there is a button that you can play the video. Can you do that? Does it show? Is it working?
No, it's not possible, the video.
Ah, okay. Sorry about that. So what that image shows actually is it's 7 days of imagery that's collected in a stack and we've created a movie of it. So it was just an image that shows you the change that you can see in very, very minute detail to the ground that's moving, or other things that are happening in that picture. So that's just a stack of 7 days of our images. Next slide, please. Okay, so our next value-added service is our flood service and natural catastrophe solutions. So a little over a year ago, we added an additional focus to our mission, which was developing solutions from the SAR data that we capture through our satellite constellation. And we realized that with our ability to capture vast amounts of SAR data, it would enable us to develop a whole suite of products that we could help and drive improved response and recovery capability. So over the last year and a half, our team have made significant progress developing a number of these solutions. And the first final product that we have that is currently in the market available is our flood hazard monitoring solution. So as you can see from the figure, several additional products will follow in the near future, mostly notably wind and wildfire. And as we add capacity to our constellation and continue to grow our analysis capability, these will come online. So all of these products tell the story in near real time, which is a game changer. And it's a real important thing for response and recovery, and one where ICEYE is hopefully perfectly positioned to help. Next slide, please.
Corinne, if you could quickly come to your conclusion, that would be nice. Huh?
Sure.
1 minute left.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So this is just a final solution of the flooding that took place in Germany this year, actually. There's a lot of data sources in there combined with SAR, and the data provides insight down to structure level in terms of impact. And more than 15,000 structures were impacted by more than 1.5 meters worth of flooding at that time. So just to finish then, what does this unlock? And it unlocks a whole load of emergency management in near real time, stories of flooding, better understanding of where to deploy resources, the ability to deliver assistance remotely and adjust it remotely, and digital transformation across the whole response and recovery life cycle. And over time, it helps our clients to understand trends that are happening in their areas of interest. So I'm going to end it there. That's our last slide, but please do not hesitate to contact me if you've got any questions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Corinne. Katarina, I'm turning to you to understand whether there are questions to Corinne in particular.
Oh, so far, no questions.
Okay.
I do have a question, but maybe let's first have a next presentation, and we take so that everybody has had the chance to give the presentation, and then we can see if other questions come in. Is that okay?
Exactly. This is what I was about to propose as well. Let's move to our last presenter for this session, and then we will use the remaining time for questions and answers. So our last speaker is Gerrit de Kromboog from Scan World, and he's going to present his company and his products. So Gerrit, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jean-Christophe. Okay, whoever is changing the slide can go to the next slide. I guess it's you, Jean-Christophe. Perfect. So, okay, so Scan World basically is a startup born in Belgium. I see that there was a little bit of some shenanigans with the slides, but that's okay. They don't look as beautiful as they should, but that's fine. As long as I explain it well, it's not going to be a problem. So basically, we were created in June last year. We're a spin-off from an IT company based in Belgium called Spatial. And our mission is basically to deliver high-quality hyperspectral imagery on a global scale, with a focus on agriculture. Agriculture is the key market in which we really see a use case for this type of imagery and satellite imagery in general. Right now, just to give a little bit of context, right now we are a team of a little bit over 10 people, and we expect to be significantly hiring in the beginning of 2022. Okay, if you can go to the next slide. So hyperspectral imagery, I know that this workshop in the beginning was mostly about very high resolution. We've heard about radar as well. Hyperspectral imagery is the next generation of imagery. It's actually what's also in the pipeline for the Copernicus program with the CHIME mission. The way we like to explain it is by comparing these two images that you see here. We have a beautiful LinkedIn post on the topic, so you can go on the LinkedIn page of ScanWorld and look for the post that gives all of the explanation about these two figures. But basically, what you see here is how light is affected by four key characteristics of leaves, depending on the wavelength. And that would be these four key characteristics would be dry matter in orange, water in blue, the structure of the leaves in purple, and the chlorophyll content in green. And most optical imagery would actually be focused on what we see with the human eye, so red, green, and blue, with sometimes also a couple of sensors in the infrared, in the near infrared. And that's what you see on the right-hand side. And so on the right-hand side, what you see is, okay, most of the information that you retrieve is about the chlorophyll content. And that's actually what we see with the human eye. We are mostly used to, if we think about vegetation, we think, okay, is it green or yellow? Because what we see is literally the chlorophyll content. And that's why satellite imagery today does not have much to offer to agriculture. Because if you de-zoom agriculture, it's one big flat cornfield, and having very high resolution images of the cornfield or very high temporal resolution of the cornfield is not that useful. Sentinel-2 is a super useful tool, of course, because there you can go a little bit further. You can do crop classification, you can have more detailed vegetation indices, and so on and so forth. But to the farmer himself, at the parcel level, it is not as actionable as we could do. And what could we do? Well, the next generation is what you see on the right-hand side. So we do a little bit of a trade-off. We choose to focus a little bit less on the spatial resolution, but instead focus on the spectral resolution. And hyperspectral is basically 100 to 200 sensors, sometimes even more, all along the spectrum from 400 to 2600 nanometers. So it's really visible all the way to the shortwave infrared. And you see that with all of the data points that you get, you actually have a detailed image of the chlorophyll content, yes, but also of the structure of leaves, water, dry matter content, etc. And that gives you actual insights about what's happening inside the leaves, diseases, metabolizable energy content, etc. Really useful to build the digital twin of the farm. Next slide, Jean-Christophe, please. How do we do that? Today at ScanWorld, we mostly rely on a technology demonstrator called Prisma from the Italian Space Agency. It's a beautiful spacecraft, provide global access. It's really state of the art. Cannot be used for commercial purposes yet today. There are no commercial licenses, but we use it for technology demonstrations, etc. And we use that in combination with drones equipped with hyperspectral cameras. Drones cannot be, in our sense, drones in agriculture cannot be used for a commercial purpose unless you really go for high-value crops like avocados or flowers or that kind of stuff, or if you go for high-value applications like breeding. Otherwise, drones cannot be used for commercial applications, but they can be used again for demonstrations. The real game changer is going to be when we launch our first satellites in 2024, and there we will start to be able to deliver imagery. That's ScanWorld in a nutshell. If you go to the next slide, Jean-Christophe, we talk a little bit about how we see ourselves interacting with the Copernicus program. We by no means do we intend to say that we are going to do better than what the European Commission does. Absolutely not. On the contrary, the perspective we take is standing on the shoulders of giants. So we see the Copernicus program, we see the Sentinel satellites, and so on and so forth. And we think, okay, we are going to leverage on the assets that exist and just augment them a little bit to focus on one very particular sector, in our case, agriculture. So the hyperspectral mission of the Copernicus program is CHIME, coming in orbit at the end of the decade. CHIME has a fantastic, it's a top-notch tool, impossible to do better, with a fantastic spatial coverage, same as actually. Yeah, 1 minute, I'm gonna be really short. But the fact is that CHIME only has a revisit time of 10 to 12 days, okay? That's a little bit low for agriculture. So what we are going to do is we are going to send additional imagers in space, our own satellites. Actually, we plan on 9 satellites, which will help to decrease this revisit rate down to 4 days, but only for farmland. And that's it. And if you go to the next slide, Jean-Christophe, which is the last one, basically how we see ourselves as a contributing mission. So basically, that's what we stand on the shoulders of the Copernicus program to serve our customers in agriculture. But we also think that the asset that we are going to launch anyway can be useful for the Copernicus program in return. First of all, as a precursor, data sets, so to already provide some data to the hyperspectral community to play with, in the same way as Prisma and MAP and so on and so forth. But also, once everything is operational and on orbit, as a temporal zoom for specific needs of EU stakeholders. It can be for disaster management and so on and so on. Voilà, that's about it. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak, and thank you for this great event and great initiative. We're really happy to see how the European Commission is keen to cooperate with new space startups. That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot. We would like to have a short break before the next session, which will be resuming at 15:45. Nevertheless, I think there is time for 1 or 2 questions. So, Katarina.
Yeah, I insist. I want to have all these questions. Sorry. Yeah. So if it's okay, Corinne, is it okay if we first take the questions for ScanWorld now and then we come back to you?
Sure, no problem at all.
Sorry, Jean-Christophe, can you see the questions or do you want me to?
Yeah, please take the floor, Katarina.
Yeah, okay. So, Gerrit, thank you very much for your presentation. So I have here, let me quickly, I have from Stefan Liebens from Vito. What spatial resolution do you target for your hyperspectral data from your planned satellite constellation?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the first generation.
Sorry, wait, and how does this match with agricultural needs? There it is. Sorry, yeah. Sorry,
No,
there
no,
it is. Sorry.
no problem.
Yeah.
So basically, for the first generation of satellites, what we intend to do is 30 meters in terms of ground sampling distance. We are also working on pan sharpening methodologies to bring that down to 5 meters. 30 meters may sound like a lot, definitely, and certainly if we think about agriculture in Europe, but actually the bulk of the market is for satellite imagery is really extensive agriculture. So we are talking about very large agricultural lands and farming exploitations. And there, what we hear from our customers is that the region of usefulness is from 20 to 30 meters in terms of ground sampling distance. More than 30 is maybe a bit low, and less than 20 is actually the cost to benefit is not really there, because then you start to spend a lot of processing power to use.
Okay, thank you very much.
I suggest we move to the question from DLR, Jan Hoffman,
yes.
to ScanWorld as well.
Please go ahead.
Are you aiming to sell the service or also the data, hyperspectral data itself from your planned satellite constellation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So definitely we plan to sell both. So data and analytics. Analytics is a bit tricky because in our experience, satellite imagery alone is often insufficient to really provide actionable information at the parcel level in agriculture. You need a bit more contextual information, or you need to do data fusion, etc. And one example of how we overcome that, it's for the specific case of water management. We have entered in a partnership with Constellation based in Germany. I think that the people at DLR should be familiar with them to use together thermal, infrared, and hyperspectral data. And that really brings 1 + 1 = 3, and we really brings a lot of value when tackling the problem of water management in agriculture. But yeah, so both data and analytics, we sell both.
Thanks a lot, Garrick. I propose to move. We have 2 questions for Corinne. One of them, a simple one probably, is can you confirm whether this is in X-band SAR? And second question, are you using interferometry?
Yes, it is X-band SAR. They're all X-band. And yes, interferometry is absolutely possible. That's the ground track repeat product that I just talked about. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, thanks a lot for this very, very clear answer.
There's one more question for ScanWorld.
Yeah, go ahead, Katarina.
It just came in. Since the planned GSD will be 30 meter, your selling point will be the temporal resolution. What kind of customers are you targeting?
Yep, that's absolutely correct. The selling point is the temporal resolution, and so customers, agriculture. So not speaking about farmers, of course, but speaking about well, that's maybe a little bit in details, but in agriculture, there is a big wave of what is called digital farming. I think that most people would have heard about that. And basically, you have new tools emerging called farm management information systems, really providing value-added services to farmer on how to run the farm, etc. And these are really heavy in data consumption. And it's not a footnote. It's we are already speaking about tens of millions of hectares under management in these tools by big firms like Bayer, BASF, Nutrien, etc. So it's not a footnote. These are our customers, and they need data. If you want to track diseases, you need information more often than once every 10 or 12 days. You need, and so they see value in the temporal resolution.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, Jean-Christophe, there was one more question for Corinne from Athena Trakis from OGC.
Correct, about digital transformation of the incident life cycle, the question
Yes.
on the screen.
Yes.
So how is the cooperation with other partners performed?
Yes, that's quite a deep and in-depth conversation, but I mean, very simply, they're all slightly different and they're all case by case, but we try very hard to talk with the customer about you know, what systems and processes they have and try and integrate very closely with them. So it would just depend on who it is we're talking to. They all have different levels of sophistication as well. So we can talk more offline if anybody would like to do that.
Or one-to-one. Gabriele, maybe, sorry, Jean-Christophe, Gabriele will come in. Maybe you can explain again how that works. Sorry, Jean-Christophe.
Go ahead, Gabriele.
Yes, exactly.
Very good timing.
Exactly. So you can directly go on to the profile of any speaker that was here today or any participant. You can add them, you write them a message. As I said, it works like LinkedIn. And when they accepted your connection, then you can organize with them a one-to-one session. I also would like to remind you on the fact that when you are asking a question on Slido, you can use labels. So instead of writing at and the name of the person, you have a little tag and it's written add label, and then you can choose the company you wanted to talk to. So that also can also be very useful if you wish to do so. Yes, that's it from my part. Do we want to explain right now for the networking session, or do you wish to take more questions?
I think if we can complete the question very quickly, that would be good, because I don't see
No
so
problem.
many any longer. One to Atlantis. Is there any public investment in the company, or is it a purely private one?
Yeah, I already answered on this, Jean-Christophe.
Sorry, I missed it. So then, is there any remaining question?
As to ScanWorld, do you plan to build facilities to integrate and test your satellites?
No. So hyperspectral imagery is complicated enough that we really want to focus on the image segment. So the processing of the data, the calibration of the data, etc. We are in talks with several suppliers for the platform and several suppliers for the payload. and if anyone is providing platforms or payload here and hasn't been contacted by us, feel free to send me an email. But I think we are talking with almost everyone, and so far it seems like platform providers are also capable of doing the integration of the instrument on the platform, and that makes things much simpler for us. We would not like to invest in such a facility only for 9 satellites.
So thanks a lot. I think it's time to close this this session. There was also a question about will the slides be shared? I repeat, yes, the presentations will be shared after that. We will put them online, so you will have plenty of time to review those. And of course, if you have more questions today or tomorrow, there will be opportunities, as already mentioned by Gabriel. So thanks a lot to our presenters. But please stay online because Gabriel has a few more information for you just before the break, after which we will meet again in the breakout sessions. Gabriel.
So yes, so basically we will have the networking session at 5 p.m. and how we wanted to organize it, us from the European Commission, is that we were planning on having a session with ESA, the European Commission, and the companies that wish to take part in. But we also ask for your feedback for that. So basically, we will now upload a poll where you can suggest for other type of networking session you would like to have. So please give us your ideas. If you have any, then we will vote on that, and we will vote on the preferred option, and that will be the result of the networking session. So we let you do that during the break as well. And also for your information, for the breakout rooms, so there will be 2 breakout rooms. And you can see, you can join the one you want. So on the right side of your screen, you will have access to both, and then you can freely move from one to the other if you wish to do so. I don't know if you have any other question. If you have that, please let me know in the chat and we'll try to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gabriel. So with this, I would like to close this session and have a few minute breaks, and we'll meet you again in one of the 2 rooms, in fact. Thank you, and see you in a few minutes. So that it's clear to everyone, at 3:45 we will resume.
Yes.
So Katarina, just to inform you, I am going to launch a breakout session now.
Okay.
So please, everyone, if you can just choose the breakout session of your choice. So as a reminder, you can see at the right of your screen the two virtual rooms that you are able to join. So the first one concerns the data analytics platform value added of satellite, and the virtual room 2 concern the satellite data provider. So please join the breakout session of your choice. If you want to join the first session, you can, and then if you want to change to the other one, you can also. So please join a session of your choice.
So welcome back to the main meeting room. We're going to start the main conclusions within a minute. Jean-Christophe, are you also online?
Katarina, I've just been informed that session 1 is not finished yet. They're dealing with the last question, so we'll close all the breakout afterwards.
Yes, that was my, I was guessing that already. Yes, okay, thank you. So please make yourself comfortable. We will start as soon as possible with the main conclusions of today. It will be by our Deputy Head of Unit, Elisabeth Hamdouche. Sebastian, do we have an outcome on the networking session?
Sebastian is still busy in the other session, but we have had one vote so far, which was the session to answer further questions. So basically, mere Q&A.
Okay, so we have one networking session then, and with with Commission ESA and companies to be invited. We can have the networking session for further questions, and then there's also the opportunity for participants to have a one-to-one networking session, correct?
Yeah, but the one-to-one will be via Swapcard, and the rest can be done via WebEx.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. So I get a message from Elizabeth. I think she's entering the room, but the participants of session 1 are still in their session, I guess.
Yes, session 1 is still ongoing.
Okay. So I see the people from the virtual room 1 coming in. Happy to see you all. We're just waiting so that everybody is here. Okay, we have a suggestion on the networking session. Gabriele, maybe you can quickly, or Umbeline, you can quickly fill us in on that one.
Yes, can Umbeline do it? I was in between rooms, so
Okay.
couldn't catch it. I'm sorry.
Okay, Umbeline, please.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so basically what we suggest, since we only have one vote for one room, is that instead of having networking breakouts and having rooms,
Sorry, we cannot hear you. Umbeline, sorry, we cannot hear you.
you cannot hear me?
Yes, yes.
And now, yeah, okay.
Hmm.
So yeah, instead of having the networking breakouts as first was suggested, so with small rooms exactly as we just did now, we could have a single session where people can raise their hand for Q&A and take the floor if they have any questions. So I don't know, this was a suggestion since we only had one vote for networking room.
Yes, okay. So, but initially it was said we could have two networking sessions, one where people can get in, meet the Commission, ESA, and other companies. And now there's the proposal to have a networking session on frequently asked question or continuation of questions. I don't know, how can we quickly solve that?
Can we make a poll and ask everyone to vote on that?
Yes. Is that possible? We need to do that. Can Elizabeth already give her conclusion remarks in the meantime, or?
It's a bit.
Yes, sure. Sorry. I
Wait,
can do that. I could do the concluding remarks and you prepare the voting
yeah,
at the
okay.
same
Is that
time.
okay, Sebastian? Is that okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So we pass the floor to Elizabeth, please.
Yes, so this was the first day of our workshop. It came very quickly to an end because the discussions were so rich and interesting that time passed very quickly. We had an excellent participation. So thanks to all of you, to the speakers and to the participants. It was more than 140 participants from private companies and public authorities and also from member states. Today, the main information was to give and share information about who are the main users of the Copernicus Contributing Missions data and what are the user needs and requirements. And this was followed by a very interesting set of the presentations to which so many of you contributed by the European New Space data providers, data analytics platforms and value-added services, satellite data solutions and satellite data providers. And we had very good interaction on this. So many thanks for this. The presentations will all be made available on this platform, but also directly on the Copernicus website. So we listened very carefully to you during this first day and of course continue to do it tomorrow. And take out of these interactions, first of all, the eagerness of industry to become part of the Copernicus Contributing Missions activity to serve the needs of the Copernicus services. And we take very carefully the different suggestions and concerns into account. And we are also very pleased with the dynamics on the market and the rich offer that we see. There were very many interesting topics that we came across about combination of different types of data, but also the issue of calibration of data, how to use complementarity of different orbits and reactivity offered by constellations and their agility with new capabilities of reacting quickly, but also in terms of variety of types of sensors and bandwidths and the issue of resilience of the infrastructure. So thank you very much for all the insights and the ideas that you shared. As colleagues said, we invite you now to the joint networking session on which you are going to receive some instructions still. And then we look very much forward to seeing you tomorrow again at the session in the afternoon, where we will present, this time together with Isa, the setup of the Copernicus Contributing Missions activity now, and of course some first preliminary outcomes of the request for information. And we hope that we have good discussions there and recommendations that we can take forward in our dialogue with industry and also with member states. So already now on the first day now, I would like to thank you very much, all the speakers and participants for your contributions, but also to the colleagues who helped organizing this event in the communications team, but also special thanks to our two young trainees who did a tremendous work to make this a success and who supported us during the day-to-day, Gabrielle Colm and Thibault Valentin. Thanks a lot and see you tomorrow, everyone. And with this, I hand over for colleagues who continue with the poll now and they switch to the networking session.
Thank you very much, Elisabeth. Over to the communication team. Where are we with the poll for the networking session? I noticed we actually had asked the moderators of the two virtual room sessions to come up with a brief conclusion, recommendations, and keywords. So it could be maybe interesting to have this in the networking session that is coming up. Can we please see the poll? Is that possible? We go into swap card, that's correct, or okay. Okay. Interesting. So what do we do now?
I think we can wait for a bit because I see that
Yeah.
only 8 people have voted. So
Okay, good.
we invite you all to vote, please, so that we can come to a less democratic result.
Attilio or Ola, maybe you quickly want to do a recap of your session in the meantime?
I will start and then and Ola can jump in. I think it was a very dense session. 8 speakers, very clear, very interesting, very different approaches, and also because it's given by the title because it covers data analytics, platform, and value-added service. From my note, I could distill a few keywords that were, and this is my personal interpretation again. I see that there is, in terms of data analytics and added value application, the trend is that the use of advanced processing technology, in particular artificial intelligence. In terms of a range of application, the approach is holistic and makes sense because it provides access to a potential to a greater pool of potential customers. Platform and application, I see there is a we could listen about interesting application in the urban environment, in particular for planning and to cope with especially all the challenges given by the climate change. I'd like to mention with pleasure also a company dealing with forestry mapping and support for managing, which managed to get to the market also thanks to the support of the incubator instruments of Copernicus. And it was a good example that also in the future for new companies now approaching on the stage to look also the opportunities that the program Cassini will provide. More information tomorrow about this. And of course, flexible use of Earth observation data and also flexible use of Earth observation data acquisition through the use of several small sat instruments, and that provides agility and flexibility in terms of type of data that can be acquired, and also will help us coping with the issue linked to data acquisition frequency and spatial coverage. This is what I could take with me from this very, very interesting and dense session. Maybe Ola, you would like to add something?
I think you did a good summary there, I'll tell you. A question that you can raise is, I think that they addressed this, the data processing and the fusion of different instruments was very interesting throughout all companies, and then the processing on board that was addressed as well. And the maturity and lifetime was definitely interesting to listen into. So it's a little bit to find out more about how will this function in the end. Will these companies allow each other to access their data, and will this system work as this fusion of different data from different instruments? Will that make room and possibilities for Copernicus to do what they intend to do on the new space side? So that was a bit my takeaway from this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for session 2. Jean-Christophe, is it okay if I start, then you complement or complete?
Yeah, please go ahead, Katarina.
Correct. Okay, in our session, we had the satellite data provider, more the established companies, which is of course very interesting because we already know what they can, or they already know what they can contribute to the Copernicus program, because they have been doing this for years, or they are very familiar with it. We learned about Platino, which is a multi-purpose platform by CTIL. And we learned that there is a SAR mission planned for 2022, a thermal infrared for 2023, 2 other missions planned but not funded yet, VNIR and Hyperspectral. We learned from Peter that they have a very interesting project which is called Calibreo, which is in-flight calibration service for smallsat, if you want to, calibration as a service. We learned from Airbus that, of course, the Pléiades Neo, which is a first European optical constellation of less than 30 centimeter resolution. We had a presentation from EasySat and Airbus on the Wolfstar constellation. And they explicitly mentioned also the element of reciprocity with Canada, with the Canadians. And we had UC with a very interesting presentation on worldview and their contribution currently since already many years to the Copernicus program, both for systematic and on-demand data. So please, Jean-Christophe, that was very concise, maybe too concise. Please complement.
I think it was very clear, Katarina. You provided all the details. What we can note is the complementarity in the data offer. So there are various types of constellations. There are no 2 companies alike in terms of data offer, and this is very interesting. and also between the different sensors. So it's not only about optical data, not only about SAR data. Of course, there are strong needs there, but the offer is being expanded, and we are very much looking forward to what is in the store in terms of plans, of course, and then as soon as this is available. And as you rightly mentioned also, Katarina, we keep talking about the data, but of course there is the infrastructure behind. It's the resilience of the infrastructure is important, but also the full chain, including the calibration of the data, as mentioned in the session and summarized by Katarina. So again, thanks a lot to all the presenters for these very clear presentations, and I think we will go back to your presentations to better digest them and exploit the information which is in there and shared with everyone today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So over to the communication team for the networking session.
Can we see the poll again, please? Could you share it to us? I think that there's a clear preference for the first option.
Yes. It looks like the contributing mission data share European versus non-European for the systematic data. So it's quite good. Yes. Let's go then to the networking session. We enter into that network session where we invite you to join us. It's an informal session. It's not recorded. It's a bit loose. And for that reason, if there are questions which are too tricky, we can say no also. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the networking session. Unless communication team would like to have other things that I forgot, maybe? No?
No, thank you, Katarina. So we are going to launch the breakout session of the first choice of the people. So they will be able to join once the breakout session will be launched. So
yeah. Just maybe a last thing. There are questions that I saw which are not being answered, and I saw in the chat some people that asked, "Can you please answer to them?" So I will try to do that. Okay.
yes, of course. So I'm going to launch the first breakout
And
session
just
now.
one last thing, remember that if you want to have a one-to-one session with someone else, this is still a possibility if you want that.
Can you remind how to do that, Gabriel?
Yes, indeed, I can remind how to do that. So you go on slide. Oh, sorry, you go on swap card. I'm getting a bit confused with the names. You go on swap card, and then you can find another participant. You can talk to this person. You can chat with this person, and then you can set up a meeting as well if you wish to do so. You go on my events, and you can set up a meeting with a participant and the time you wish to do so. So that could be now if you want that to happen.
Thank you.
So thank you, Gabriel. So now I'm going to launch the breakout session for the networking session.
Thank you.
So if some people are interested to join the networking session, you can just see at the top of your screen on your right, you can see the breakout room session. You can just click on join and you will be able to participate in the networking session with ESA and European Commission. So thank you everyone for joining this meeting, and have a nice networking session hall.